For just $25, you can get this 12x super zoom camera loaded with features. But is it worth it? Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Classic Camera Review. My name is Al Jarina, and today we're reviewing the Canon S3 IS. This was a camera that was released back in 2006. And well, let's just go down the spec sheet here. So it's considered a super zoom, or sometimes called a bridge camera. And a bridge camera is kind of considered to be a camera that bridges the gap between your traditional just point and shoot camera and a more modern DSLR. Of course, this camera was released back in 2006 by Canon. Let's go down the spec sheet here. So we have a maximum aperture of f2.7 all the way to 3.5 at the telephoto end. It goes up to f8 as far as how far it can close down its aperture, if you know what that means. The shutter speed, it goes from 15 seconds all the way to 1/3200th of a second. It has both mechanical and electronic shutter. The focal length, which is the most amazing part about this camera, goes from 36 millimeters all the way out to 432 millimeters. That is quite a range. Canon claims a 12x range. So that is a lot of lens and a lot of reach. You'll see in some of the shots here. Also, about this camera, it is a CCD sensor, and we'll talk about sensors a little bit in future episodes as well. But just to say, that is an older type of sensor. The newer sensors are what are called CMOS sensors. This is an older CCD sensor. Now, some claim that CCD sensors have a sort of a more realistic film-like look to them, and so a lot of the popularity right now is that people are flocking to these types of older cameras because they do like the look that the sensor gives. It also has included optical image stabilization, which works pretty well to help you with camera shake, especially when you're zooming way out and trying to get those really long shots. It will automatically try to stabilize the image for you while you're holding it so you don't have camera shake. The ISO is limited from 80 all the way to ISO 800, and then there's also an auto ISO feature. And then it shoots a burst mode of 2.3 frames per second of continuous burst. And then, of course, it has an EVF, as you can see on the back here. We have an EVF as well as a flippy kind of a vari angle, as they call it, screen. It's a small screen, not too big here. I believe it's 1.8 or 2 inches. I'll have to check my specs here. But all in all, it's quite a capable camera. So let's talk a little bit about the usability and performance of it, the ergonomics especially. So yeah, it's a 2-inch screen here. And of course, you have that electronic viewfinder there. So you have the option of viewing on the back of the camera, or you can view in the viewfinder when you're composing your shot. Some people find that in outdoor or in very bright locations, they can't see this very well because of glare. And so that's where the electronic viewfinder can come in handy on a camera. Um, One of the things I found very interesting about this camera is the amount of buttons that are on this thing. I mean, you can see right here we have 6, 7, and if you count this, 8, and this is a directional control button here. So 8 buttons just right here on this thing. It also includes some buttons on the side here. So now we're up to 10 buttons, 11 buttons on top, 12. So they're just buttons everywhere on this thing, and they all do something different or unique to the camera. And so I think with that, it's just, if you like having your buttons external, I know some people don't like to go into menus and change settings. This camera packs a lot of settings right on the outside. You just push a button and change a setting or get to a specific setting. Um, However, you will see that one thing about this is it's kind of a chunky camera. It's not massive, but it's certainly not necessarily pocketable. You wouldn't want to just stick this in a shirt pocket or a jeans pocket. Um, so it is kind of a chunky little thing, but certainly not too big. It also runs, interestingly, and this is one of several cameras I believe that were released in this time frame that uses regular AA batteries. So I'm going to go ahead and open this here, and you're going to see it takes 4 AA batteries. And kind of one of the things about this camera that I had happen to me at one point is the older version of this camera, the S2 IS, used to have the SD card slot with the batteries. So if ever you opened this up and you saw as I did, the battery just kind of fell out. You can run into that issue if you happen to grab an older model of this, but the newer models, they did move that here to make it, but to make it more convenient, of course. But the great thing about these is that you can find these anywhere. You don't have to worry about, oh no, I forgot the charger or even the batteries, are dead. You can just go to a store and just get more, or you, of course, can buy the rechargeables and do that as well. But it's just the availability of the batteries kind of makes this another additional kind of, perk to this camera. It has some neat features on it as well. The buttons I mentioned on the side are actually dedicated to the types of focus, and you have a macro button here, as well as if you hold this button in, you also have something called super macro. And believe it or not, this thing can focus all the way down to 0 centimeters. And that's so close that you can pretty much touch your subject with the lens of this camera and still grab a focus and get a shot. And I have taken it. There are some examples of that we'll see as well where I've used the macro and the super macro mode. It also has the ability to punch in manual focus where you can just push the manual focus button and change it and dial in your focus with the camera controls here as well. It also has, if you look on the top at the control, it has the full manual settings. It also has priority settings like aperture and shutter priority, as well as program and a whole host of scene modes. So this thing does a lot. The last thing I want to mention here is it does have a flat flash. It's not a pop-up flash. If you push the button, it will not pop it up. However, you can flip it up just like that, and you can see right here, it's a small flash, but what's very interesting about this camera, I think at least, is that it allows you to control the power of the flash. So you can dial that power up and down, and I'm going to show you an example on the screen of just what that looks like. Taking a photo of my cat, you can see that you can take a normal shot or you can take a lower exposure shot just by dialing down the power or up the power of your flash. And so that's kind of a neat feature to be able to control that little flash on here to output power a little differently. All right, so now let's talk about the image quality. So the JPEG files are pretty decent. The colors are pretty well balanced and there's good detail in there. I was able to get quite a few shots that I enjoyed from it. I would say that while the JPEGs, though, the files on here are usable, do not expect a 2006 camera, CCD camera to really outshine your phone. Most phones these days take excellent images, even with their stock lenses and stuff like that. But I'll tell you the fun factor on this thing. It was one of my favorite things about this camera. I took it out for a couple of walks and just took photos as I did, and I just had a blast with this thing. I think one of the reasons for that was it just has so many controls and buttons. It's just so many different things that you can do. The versatility, the fact that I can take close-up macro shots with this thing, get really close, but then at the same time, I can use the 432 millimeter zoom on here, the 12x zoom, to zoom this guy out and get far away shots as well and get them in the frame. It just had a lot of fun to me. It, again, because it's easy to find batteries and memory card, I wasn't worried about any of that. And the price. The price for this thing on the market last that I saw was somewhere around 25 to 30 US dollars. I mean, that's ridiculously cheap for a camera that can do all of these things. Now, again, depending on what you're using this camera for is going to determine whether or not that is a value for you. So let's talk about some of the cons, right? The image noise, okay? If you raise your ISO level, if you know what that is, the ISO on this starts to fall apart even at ISO 400. So even in outdoor brightly lit shots, if you have it at ISO 400, you're going to see noise. That's an annoying thing for you. You might want to just keep on moving. It might not be the selection for you. I will say that, again, the LCD here, the 2-inch LCD on the back, is very difficult to see in bright conditions. But this, again, is the reason we have this EVF on here. You would have to use the EVF in those situations, but at least there's the option. And also, another con that some might find is just how chunky it is. It's not something you slip into a coat pocket so easily as other cameras from this time period. So who would this camera then be for? So, well, I would say that if you're a beginner and you want to get into photography, but you're a little bit skeptical about buying a DSLR or a mirrorless camera with interchangeable lenses, you feel like that's too much of an investment. You still want to learn, you still want to try things out. This is an excellent camera for that. I felt personally that the manual controls on here made it very easy to change your aperture and your shutter and just to kind of get into those settings and see what they do to the image. So I would say if you're a beginner and you just want to learn, this is an excellent investment of $25 to $30 if you can find one. If you're an advanced amateur, maybe you really know the camera, maybe you even have a DSLR or a mirrorless camera with interchangeable lenses, and you just want kind of a companion camera that you can chuck in a bag or something to throw around. And it's just a do-it-all camera. You don't have to worry about, did I bring the right lens or do I have them all or carry a bunch of gear? You can just bring this thing for your casual outing. Now for pros, I wouldn't even look at this for anything other than just for fun. It's I would never consider this for professional work. The JPEG files, again, are reasonable, but it's just not something that can stand up to even just older DSLRs at this point. However, if you fall under those other categories I mentioned previously, I think this would be a decent camera. So is it a good camera overall? For $25, $30, I would say, yeah, it'd probably be worth it if you're in those categories. Otherwise, if you're doing professional stuff, definitely not. As a bridge camera, a super zoom camera, they tend to make compromises. And I would say for the average professional, too many compromises. So there you have it. We're going to give this one a thumbs up for those people I mentioned below. If you're an amateur or beginner, great camera if you can find them on eBay or on the used site. Yeah. So thanks again for tuning in, everyone. If you like what you saw here, feel free to give us a subscribe and a like, and we're going to be reviewing more cameras in the future. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked what you saw here, please give us a like and a subscribe so we can put out more content for you